welcome to Light Warrior Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Karen Kan, author of the #1 best-selling book, Sensitivity is Your Superpower, How to Harness Your Gifts, Fulfill Your Purpose, and Create a Life of Joy. And if you're new to this show, I'd love to gift you my Sensitive Soul Empowerment Guide. And that is the 3 ways of navigating your way to more peace, positivity, and personal power. You can get that at sensitivesoulguide.com. And today we are going to be talking about sleep. Yes, there are millions upon millions of people all over the world that are having major sleep issues. And here's the thing, is we actually heal when we are in deep sleep. And studies have shown that we are not actually, so many people are not actually in deep sleep. They fall asleep and they close their eyes, and either they're not dreaming or they're not in deep sleep state. Their brain waves don't go into delta. And so people are not doing well. They're not healing. And today's guests, Pradeep, Kumar, and Trupti Shah, are experts at sleep. They have the Indian wisdom and holistic approach, incorporating both, marrying both, and teaching us how to sleep better, having better quality sleep so we can heal ourselves. And, there are parents that had little kids that didn't sleep very well. So this is perfect, this topic. But even if you are not parents of little children, if you are not sleeping through the night, and if you are not feeling well when you are waking up in the morning, maybe you need to learn more about what they call the sleep code. Renew your lifestyle, recode your mind, restore your sleep. This book is available on Amazon and all the book resellers here. And let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. So Pradeep Kumar is a wellness mentor, entrepreneur, author, coach, Reiki master, chromotherapy practitioner, as well as a certified, I'm going to maybe not say this word right, but Upanishadic studies. He's a former financial advisor who worked in the marketing and financial industry. Kumar is a master of business administration and marketing from India. Trupti Shah is a former information technology professional with a passion for holistic practices that led her to earn a master's degree in acupuncture. She's a certified laughter therapist, love those, Reiki master, cosmic energy healer, and cognitive behavioral therapist. Both Kumar and Shah are company founders of the Art of Self-Healing. Like I said before, they're co-authors of the beautiful book Sleep Code, Renew Your Lifestyle, Recode Your Mind, and Restore Your Sleep, an international bestseller in 9 countries. They live in Ontario, Canada, where I am from, and you can find out more about them and their fantastic book, artofselfhealing.ca. So artofselfhealing.ca. Welcome, both of you. Trupti, Pradeep, it's so great to have you.
Hi, Karen. Thanks for having me. Actually, unfortunately, Trupti couldn't join today as she had a commitment all of a sudden, and so she had to be away. And so I apologize on her behalf. However,
okay.
Yeah, and so I'm actually covering up for her today. And
okay.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have a pretty good conversation, and I think I can do justice in her absence. So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Pradeep. I'm actually going to open up the chat for the folks that are live. If you are listening in on the internet, I'm just going to open the chat in case you have any questions that come up for Pradeep as we go on in the interview. You can post them in the chat. You can also raise your hand if you're calling in live on the phone. The number is 818-514-1190. Hit 1 so we know your hand is up. So when we go ahead and field the questions later, you can do that. So 818-514-1190. Hit 1. Let us know your situation, what's going on with you, what sleep trouble you're having, and then maybe get some really, really prime advice specific to you from Pradeep. So Pradeep, tell us about you and Trupti's experience. Like, how do people in marketing and IT become holistic wellness practitioners? This is so interesting.
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, we actually opened up ourselves into the area of sleep very late, after our marriage and things like that. Prior to that, it is a tradition in India to actually have a kind of a holistic Ayurvedic kind of lifestyle. So,
Mm.
right from our birth, we were trained to basically take care of our health in a very holistic way. So, modern doctors weren't all that easily available to the general public, and so it was a common practice that everybody takes care of their health from their own kitchen. In fact,
Mm.
the kitchen is considered as a home's pharmacy. And so we all grew up in that kind of a lifestyle. So wellness was not something which we were trained for. It was actually practiced as a lifestyle. Well, these days we specifically call them with these really good fancy names, but back then it was really how we learned life from our own homes. And so,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
that
beautiful.
is primarily how we got into this. And then later on, it branched out into various other areas. And we chose sleep only because we had difficulty in that area as we turned out to become new parents. We were really struggling. And as you rightly mentioned, we are from the corporate world, and, marrying the corporate lifestyle to a regular, parenting kind of background, it was not really easy. It was obviously the first time we were being parents, and we actually lost a little bit of track as to how we were trained and the lessons we learned in the past. And so it had to, come back into that normal cycle. And it took a lot of rethinking and a lot of practice to gain back our momentum to, basically having it aligned with our existing lifestyle. So yeah,
Mm.
that is how we got into it.
Wow, wow. I think it's amazing that because of your culture, that,
Yeah,
like you said, healing wellness, all these fancy names we use these days, really starts in your home and in the kitchen. In your case, when you're talking about it, these Ayurvedic practices, thank goodness, that you had that base and foundation. And even though the both of you being very, very busy and successful professionals in the business world or
right.
IT world, maybe got away temporarily, like from that alignment with all the busyness of life, you were able to really connect back in when there was a real need for that, with your children growing up and things like that. And lucky them, lucky them to have parents who are able to do that and show them and model that, because we definitely have a lot of sick children right now, especially in America, where these habits, these stress habits, and all these things, we don't really teach them lifestyle things. We teach them the easy things. Get a box, get a make this macaroni, like fend for yourself. Here, I'm going to babysit you with this device. And sometimes the parents, well-meaning, but just don't really have that base, that lifestyle foundational base that you both had. So that is super cool. So tell us about the book. What is the sleep code anyway?
Okay, so we talk about 10 codes, as we call it, which are technically chapters. So the first chapter, we deal about valuing sleep. So it's called Value Sleep. The second code deals with sleep education and training, which is risk management. The third code deals with bringing harmony. The fourth code deals with developing a positive attitude. The fifth code is conquering emotions.
Mm.
After that, followed by developing a happy mind. We have code number 7, which deals with pranayama, which is controlled breathing. The 8th code deals with stress and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Code number 9 deals with energy healing. And we have the last code, the code number 10, which deals with sleep rituals. So essentially, sleep is just not about, going to bed and closing your eyes and trying to, really go through a well-rested night. It is basically everything to do with your mind. And that is what we are trying to, communicate with the world, because it is all about how you train your mind to be, how you basically try and control your emotions, how you can develop a positive attitude. Because in the book, you will find that we have mentioned that sleep is an art and not an activity. So it is very essential for every human being to understand that, because these days we have got so many different devices which we believe that will essentially give you the rest that we are looking for. But, ancient science, like the Vedas, which essentially means knowledge, they recommend that you can only achieve that level of sleep when you have trained your mind to be under your control, and you don't actually give away your control to the mind. And so that is an essential distinction which one needs to understand, because according to the Vedas, deep sleep is a state of consciousness, and it passes through 4 different states. The states, like right from waking, we move on to the dream state, and then we go into the deep sleep. And then there is a 4th state, which is not commonly discussed, which is called as turiya. Turiya meaning pure consciousness. And this is a particular state where only a trained yogi can go in and out of that state. And each of these states are necessarily required to be practiced well and mastered in order for us. Well, in Western science, we call about the theta state of sleep, the delta state, and all of that. But in the ancient science, they didn't go into so many specific terminologies, but they just simply called it as a deep sleep. And that is what every one of us is aspiring to get to when we reach that state. And with enough amount of practice, we can definitely achieve that state on a day-to-day basis, and something which we can practice to the extent that we can do it at our will. But it definitely takes a little bit of work. It is not as easy as it sounds, but it is not something that which is not achievable either. So so that is what sleep and what our book really deals with.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love what you said about sleep is an art, not an activity. I believe that most of us, including myself, have really just taken sleep for granted. It's sort of just something we think we do. We're like, oh yeah, I just want to rejuvenate the body, blah blah blah, right? And in Western medicine, as I'm a medical doctor, we do sometimes teach people about sleep hygiene, but that only addresses mainly the physical aspects of, healthier sleep habits, whether that be, blocking out light in the room and not having your devices near your head and, having a routine. And you touched upon that in much more detail, of course, in the last chapter, and things like that. But we really don't talk about the mindset and the emotions and really the spiritual aspects of sleep and that connection to our whole lives. And that's what your book is doing, is really enlightening us to those other aspects that, hey, sleep is not just this inconvenient thing,
Yeah.
that we have these 8 or 10 hours, however long that we do. And then there's life, right? What I'm hearing from you and Trupti is that it's holistic. It's part of it's part of the whole thing. And so when you said the yogis have this enlightened or different state that they go into really deeply, when I was studying with Jeffrey Thompson, who does the whole brainwave entrainment thing, he had a CD that he was selling called Gamma and Hyper Gamma, and they had taken brainwaves of yogis and monks and high-level meditators that have been doing it for decades, and found that their brainwaves were very, very different from the average waking person,
Right.
and that through brain entrainment they could get to this state faster, with the help of the CD. So I think it's really interesting what you were talking about, the different levels and depths of sleep and what we can aspire to. So thank you.
You're welcome. So basically, an individual could basically experience the external world through any kind of sense perception. So even in our waking state, we are kind of asleep, but we can observe the objects through our senses and through our experience, basically depending on the limitations of our mind's perceptive kind of capacities. The exposure which relies in our mind is about the cultural, social, even educational and individual experiences. So your senses and your mind will not rest during sleep. And that is one of the reasons one feels tired when you wake up in the morning and you feel like you really haven't had the kind of sleep that you thought you did. And to turn that whole functionality off is something which you need to practice. And the practices that we have recommended in this book helps you get to that state very easily. And it's important that we go step by step. And there are so many things that we can do. We talk about, meditation. We talk about exercises. We talk about so many different aspects which will make it all good. However, sleep in itself is a meditation. And so practicing that is no different than actually practicing meditation. So if you get, truly, it may sound a little bit off. However, the reality is that once I've explained the various aspects and practices that one needs to take through in order to gain restful sleep, you will understand how it correlates to meditation itself. Meditation is nothing but focusing at one point. Whereas in sleep, you really have to focus between your mind, body, and your spirit in order to get into that sequencing. And that is essentially what yoga actually is. It is a union of the mind, body, and spirit, and sleep is actually not any different from that. So practicing proper sleep has its own countless benefits. And all of these benefits come together only if you have controlled your emotions, controlled your attitudes, and that in itself will take care of the stress and anxiety an individual is experiencing. And so all that is left to do is to have a proper ritual before your sleep time. And that takes care of the rest of the story, yeah, so to say.
Oh, that's great. Because it's like I'm more familiar with, chapter 10
Yeah.
in terms of advice giving, but I just love that idea of conscious sleep practices. Like, I mean, even
Right.
though you're practicing when you're awake and, different things, but, people would say if you go to bed angry or, if you, if you dream, people were like, oh, well, I dreamt about the stresses of the day or those kinds of things. So it sounds like most of us just unconsciously do the sleep thing, not even recognizing that there's a process. There's something that we can evolve here. We're just like, oh, well, I didn't have good sleep. Oh, well.
That's
and not
right.
even think twice about it. That's really fascinating what you're talking about.
Right. And, attitude in itself is a huge part of our daily existence. And we may think, what has this got to do with sleep? But I would argue and say it has everything to do with sleep. Because if we don't, practice acceptance, which is very vital, it's something everybody needs to start doing. You need to practice your gratitude. You need to practice forgiveness, and more importantly is to practice detachment. Detachment means we are such animals that we get attracted to something. We are so much intertwined with it that we cannot, separate ourselves from it. So that is one of the most important lessons one needs to practice and adopt into their daily life. Because once somebody can get over their attachment and be detached, and they can actually see the difference within themselves. Like, you have to be an observer of yourself. You got to come out of yourself, and you got to be that third party looking from the outside of yourself, and you will then be able to witness how easy that can become, and how should I word it? How it is. What the word I'm actually looking for is that how powerful you can be when you actually detach. So there is nothing controlling you. And,
I love that.
Yeah, and so it is very important that we practice all of these different attitudes, because a little shift can make a very big difference. And so that is very vital in my opinion.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I want to expand on this a little bit. And if you're just joining us, I'm interviewing one of the team of the Sleep Codes author, and this is the wonderful book Sleep Code: Renew Your Lifestyle, Recode Your Mind, Restore Your Sleep, together with Pradeep Kumar today and Trupti Shah, our co-authors of this beautiful book. And we are talking about the other aspects of what maybe you haven't heard about, that sleep is an art. It's not just a thing that you do or just an activity, a passive activity that you just hope, cross your fingers, that it's going to go well. So if you want to call in and ask a question for Pradeep, here is your chance. We're going to be unmuting folks a little bit later in the show. The number to call in is 818-514-1190. Hit 1 so we know your hand up. And again, the number is 818-514-1190 and hit 1. And then if you are on the chat here live online, you can also post a question here, and Pradeep can do a little bit of mini coaching for you. Pradeep, I was just going to mention this whole thing that you just said about attitude has been really huge for me personally, and I didn't make the connection until you said it about my just a couple of weeks ago, an experience that I had of having what other people call sick symptoms. So I like to say that it was an unplanned massive cleanse, but I had some symptoms of fever and fatigue, things like that, and mild respiratory symptoms. And unlike the past, where I had these symptoms in the distant past, it was very interesting because what you were talking about is the attitude. So this time I got to experience these symptoms as just an experience and not label it as bad or what did I do wrong or I wish this stuff would go away, and and instead was more like I called it radical acceptance, being able to see it from the observer point of view, like, that's curious, that's interesting. And then noticing that there's a whole swath of people having similar symptoms at this time. And then my curiosity was piqued, what's going on? I got that it was a spiritual evolution for many, many people, and it's just a temporary thing. And I knew that if I had the right attitude around that it would heal much, much faster. I wouldn't have to attach myself to the fear of, is this COVID? Or, do I need a test? Or, that kind of thing. And instead going, my body can heal itself. I'm just going to observe it. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to, I'm going to cancel all these appointments, to give myself time to heal. But the attitude was so different from the past where I would be worried and I'd push myself and try to make myself go through all my day because I didn't want to disappoint people. So I think what you're talking about is this is holistic. This is not just about sleep as in, how to get better sleep so you can heal yourself. It really is your whole life is reflected in these practices. So thank you for pointing that out to us, because I realized I actually slept better through this quote-unquote illness symptoms than I ever have before.
Right. Yeah, very true. Because, clarity is a very big thing, actually. Mostly as regular people doing, sort of regular work and just going about our life on a day-to-day basis. What we lack is clarity. Clarity, it means just looking at things the way it is. Because when we look at something, we start having our own interpretations about things. And then we start to complicate the thing that we are looking at. We don't look at something for the way it is. And, that clarity is something as simple as it can be. But we as human beings love to complicate every single thing which comes our way. And, we love to have our own opinions about it. We love to have our own judgments about things, and so clarity is just living life by thinking things through, not thinking in a circle, So it only manifests the kind of result that we aspire for because it ends up showing that you have considered the options and you are very particular about what you want to achieve from that moment. So we need to bear that in mind all through not only the day, but all through our life. Once we gain clarity in our life, it will eliminate all of the unwanted issues and worries which we keep, mounting and piling up for ourselves for no reason, because we carry all this kind of emotional baggage which is so heavy upon us all day long. And it is absolutely unnecessary. It is not called for. And who is the culprit in all of this? It is us. We are the ones who are making it so hard on ourselves while we can eliminate all of these problems and lead a much content, happier life. But we choose not to. But who's to blame? you know? Yeah.
Yeah, my mom used to call us the complicated cans.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I totally resonate with what you're saying. Like when you were talking about clarity, it reminded me of, several things, different words, but several things that I had really connected with and read about. One author was saying about truth. He said, truth is not your opinion about something. It's
yeah.
what is. And so when you're saying clarity, you're like, what is it?
Exactly.
Like the actual thing. What us humans do is we have an experience. Like for example, my 6 symptoms. Right, I have had a fever. So the fever is, yes, my body temperature is higher than it normally is. That is the truth, right? But then we
Right.
complicate it by our thoughts and our opinions. So I could have gone down that road. That old me go, oh my God, is it an infection? What kind of infection is it? How long is this going to last? I don't want to have this fever. You know what I mean? And all these
Yeah.
judgments and opinions and negative emotions and guilt and all this kind of stuff. And this time I was able to say, oh, it's a fever. And then
Right.
I thought, okay, I can hear all these other thoughts wanting to come up. I'm like, okay, that's nice. Thanks for sharing. And then and then go
Yeah.
to, oh, my body can heal itself. And just go, okay, so I'm just going to observe minute to minute. And if I'm called to do something, whether that be more minerals or water or lie down or whatever, I will do that thing, but not have an opinion about it. Not think about 2 weeks from now, how bad
Yeah.
am I going to feel? Or, am I going to die? Or, all that kind of stuff that us humans do. So when you say clarity, I totally resonate with that. That is just accepting what is. It's
That's
so
correct.
powerful, like you said.
Yeah, it is. And, as I mentioned before, amongst the attitude, one of the most important attitudes I would consider would be, it is detachment, as I mentioned before, because it is
Mm-hmm.
a longevity skill. It is, because most of us basically um, are so focused on the outcome that
Mm-hmm.
we pay less attention to the process of getting there. You
So
know,
true.
yeah, and so it is very vital and very important skill to have. I call it a skill because indeed everybody needs to work on it in order to
Mm.
master that skill. We are just too attached with whatever it is that we like, and we would like to repeat the same thing over and over again because that somehow gives us some kind of a pleasure. But actually,
Mm.
the most important thing is once we focus on the process, the desired outcome is bound to happen, whether you like it or not. The desired outcome is bound to happen. But if we lose focus on the process itself, then that is where it is very easy to go wrong. And it is very important um, to actually religiously practice these skill sets so that one can attain that desirable outcome. And I can't stress enough about how important that little attitude shift can mean and be, because it's always not about what we want from life. It's always what is best uh, for everybody or for that given situation. So, but we are those kind of creatures who always think that there is nothing bigger than ourselves, right? So we need to give ourselves so much of importance and all the
Mm.
pampering that we can get that we
Yes.
blindside ourselves to a lot of, again, going back to the clarity part of it. We don't see that coming, and we blindside ourselves and we fall into these traps. So yeah, it's a very,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
I call them kind of conditioned habits. And I used to say like shoulda, woulda, coulda, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I used to should myself all the time. You should have
Right.
done this. You should have done that. Well, you could have done that, and just make myself crazy about what I did wrong and that whole attachment thing. And being
Yeah.
detached is really an amazing, not easy necessarily, but an amazing spiritual practice. And so my go to right now is curiosity
Yeah.
because it's one step removed from complete, detachment. And that's where I'm at currently is instead of, having an opinion or judgment about what's happening, I go, that's interesting. Hmm. You know, and just as the observer going, that's interesting. Is this a pattern? And just exploring that without necessarily being attached to what it should be. I have to get better by such and such a day, or I have to have this amount of money in my bank account by such and such a time or day, or whatever. The symptom has to go away, if I did the right thing. So all
Yeah.
that really caused suffering. And there is a saying, and I don't know exactly what it is, but something like, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional or something.
Correct. So true.
Mm-hmm.
So true. And yeah, so it is something which we can change very, very easily. We don't really have to fall into that trap, remain in that trap, and then, suffering. Um, so
Yes.
many of these things are a choice. We always, in life, whenever we face a situation, I always believe that there are two choices right in front of you, and you choose the right door or you don't. And so the options are always right there in front of you. So nobody
Mm-hmm.
is blamed, It's just our own making.
Right. Now, I know a lot of people, not people here listen to the show necessarily, but might argue that Pradeep is like, well, what do you mean? Sometimes I don't have a choice. If I want to keep my job, I have to do X, Y, Z, or if I want to stay married, I have to concede and not get what I want, and so there's a lot of this, um, attachment to that belief that we don't have a choice. So maybe you can expand on that a little bit. And then I just want to remind people, if you want to come on live and ask a question personal to you for Pradeep, the number to call in is 818-514-1190. Again, 818-514-1190 and hit 1. Okay, so yeah, so maybe you can expand a little bit on that piece, Pradeep.
Right. So, when I say that there is always a choice, it is about whether to decide to go with this or not to go with that. So whether we, a desire for having something may be always there. However, what works best for the given situation is what the choice is all about. So choice doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be something favorable to ourselves. Choice means that there is something out there which can deal with this situation in a more effective way, in a way that it can be helpful for everybody. So that doesn't mean that it is all about us and what benefits us or what we can get out of it. It can sometimes also mean that how easily we can navigate through that given situation without having to go through hell. So that is the kind of choices what we are talking about. And so when we talk about choice, why do we have to equate it to our benefit? Why do we have to, identify it with something that I'm going to be prosperous with and things like that. No, it doesn't need to be that way. Because again, coming back to clarity, we got to see for what it is and how it is. If this is the situation, if this can transpire into something lethal, do I really want to deal with it? If I don't want to deal with it, I have a choice not to. But it is for me to make up that decision, to come up with that solution. And so,
right, and no one can dictate what your choice should be.
That's right. But most people think exactly the way how they can benefit from a situation. Like you just mentioned, I'm going to lose a job. Perhaps, what we don't know is whether there is a better job waiting out there for you. But today, what kind of information we have, we are kind of underlining everything, thinking that this is the be-all and end-all of things, which doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And maybe it is something that is going to ease you from the kind of pain which you possibly can face tomorrow, which we don't know. So most of the things in life, what happens to us is what we don't know. But again, we got to make those choices just to ease it a little bit more than what it is already. And so that is what I mean by choice.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you. So we do have a caller here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and unmute you. And the last 4 digits is 1067. So just tell us your first name and if you have a question or comment for Pradeep. So here we go. Let me unmute you. Last 4 digits, 1067. Hi, who's this?
Hi, Dr. Karen. This is Lil. And
hi Lil.
I am so enthralled in this whole discussion. And Pradeep, I wanted to ask you, are you coming from the perspective that the mind is where we need to focus as opposed to the body being the guide that knows more than the mind does? I've read both perspectives, where some people believe that, our body really has the knowledge. If we just listen to the messages that come forth, then sleep or pain or whatever can be managed as opposed to struggling with it. Or are you from the perspective that the mind is what needs to be manipulated, changed, persuaded, so that you can control the body or guide the body as opposed to the body guiding you, the mind, et cetera, et cetera? I yield. Thank you.
Right.
Good question.
Yeah, thank you, Lil, for that great question. The body is an extension of our own mind. And, there are many faculties of the mind. There are actually 16 parts to it. However, we are just going to deal with the 4 main parts of the mind, which we call it as the faculties. The first one is intellect. The second one is identity. The third one, more importantly, is the memories. And first, when we deal with intellect, it is always logical. Intellect is always about reasoning and things like that. And then, when it comes to intellect, this is the only thing as human beings we use a lot, which is the only aspect we use a lot on a day-to-day basis. And so whatever we think comes with a reason, comes with a logic. We believe that to be true and the only thing which exists, which isn't necessarily true. And so, when it comes to the physicality of ourselves, it is nothing but the extension of our mind. And so the other part of the mind I was talking about is an identity. It doesn't, the identity meaning it is me. I have a name, and I have a position. I have a job, a responsibility. This is the kind of identity the mind takes over and believes that to be you. But that is something that you have taken up after you were born into this world and things like that. But that isn't necessarily you. But that is what the mind tricks you into believing. That is the other aspect. And there is the one more aspect which deals with memories, which is called as manas in Sanskrit. And under the memories, there are so many different memories, which is called the elemental memory, the atomic memory. There is the evolutionary memory. There is the karmic memory, which is a xylo of memories put together. Then there is a sensory memory, inarticulate memory, and articulate memory. So, mind has all of these different dimensions to go about. It is a big organ which actually controls us on its own. So that is why when you look at meditators, all they do is just taking control of their mind. They can in turn change the dynamics of the body, and they can regulate their heartbeat. They can basically regulate the body temperature. They can do wonders with it. So that goes on to prove that mind has got a big sort of a contribution in how you can take control of your body. If you actually read the Yoga Sutras, Yoga Sutra meaning it is the book which is written by a sage called Patanjali, which is what we know as the modern yoga. So in the Yoga Sutras, sutras means techniques. In that, there is a mention, all of these physical yoga, what we do is basically nothing but to train your mind. So once you start training your mind, your body will accordingly behave the way you want, and you can regulate so many things, and that is what yoga teaches. And the master of yoga has written this book, and he claims that mind is the most essential organ which needs to be controlled in order for you to get the desired outcome out of your own body, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. My follow-up question would be, in your philosophy, belief, or whatever terminology you want to utilize, do you feel that the body was first in the creation of our essence, our little vessel that contains our soul when we're incarnated in this lifetime, and then the mind is the last thing to be created in the whole little earth vessel that we're using to maneuver in this dimension while we're here? I am just curious if what it is that you believe comes first.
Right. That is a very debatable subject, and
that's why I asked it.
Of course you did.
Yeah. However, mind is a creative aspect of our physical self. So it is mind-body alignment. It is all about mind-body union. And so the word yoga essentially means union. Union of what? Union of mind, body, and the spirit. And so that is why it is it is like a double-edged sword. One cannot be there without the other, so to say. So the body cannot exist without the mind. Neither the mind could exist without the body. So
an interdependent relationship. Got it.
That is correct. And so, we cannot pick and choose what we want out of this, because it is the holistic approach. So it is all intertwined into one. And so we cannot separate it at our will and pleasure and then pick and choose something, unfortunately. So, so it is very important to, control your mind. Controlling your mind necessarily meaning that it is also going to control your emotion. It is also going to control your attitude, and so it is also going to help you, develop a happy mind. And so all of these essentially are the tools that we have. What we can do with those tools is to employ them to our benefit to get the necessary and desired result. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That really answers my question. So, yes, listen to the body and act accordingly, but until you can figure out how to use your mind as opposed to your mind using you, I'm saying it a different way. You said it a little bit more eloquently. And so now that makes sense to me, because I was coming from the mindset of my body knows. It knows how to heal. I'm getting in my own way. So I'm thinking, well, then just listen to my body. Well, that's all good until my mind starts going, lack of a better term, batshit crazy. And then my body's like, what are you doing? Get control of that thing, for goodness sake, because we really need that, okay? We're telling you what we need, but you got to figure that mind out, because it's a runaway train right now, and it is not helping this situation. So thank you. I really appreciate that elaboration. Thank you so kindly for both of you, Karen and Pradeep.
Thank you.
Great awareness there, Lil. Thank you. That was really fun. And that was a really great question, too, because it's not either or, or separation philosophy. Because we often say, Pradeep, right, we say mind, body, spirit as if they're separate entities, but they're not. They're all interconnected, and are wanting to sometimes have the details, because I can be detail-oriented, sometimes try to figure things out, is actually some of the mind frick, if you will, where my mind says, I need to know all the details, otherwise I can't move forward, right? And that's actually not necessary. So this is a beautiful question, and you answered it beautifully. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Let's just check in. I'm just going to check in to see if there's any other questions here. We have a few minutes left, so if you're called in, 818-514-1190, hit 1 so we know your hand is up. Again, 818-514-1190, and hit 1 so your hand is up. So I believe I had mentioned your website, but I want to share it with everyone more specific to the book, Sleep Code, Renew Your Lifestyle, Recode Your Mind, and Restore Your Sleep. It's www.sleepcode.guru. So sleepcode.guru. So maybe, Pradeep, you can mention, what will people find there, and, how do they connect with you or Trupti after this call, in case they have any other questions or concerns around this topic?
Right, absolutely. So if you type in the web address www.sleepcode.guru, it'll automatically take you to the Art of Self-Healing website. It'll redirect you automatically. And there you will find all sorts of information. You can download our book there. You can download our audio book there. And you can interact with us via the email if you do have any specific questions. And if there is something that you would like to know if there are any practices which you would like to learn a little bit more about, we are always there to assist you. We'll be more than happy to do whatever it takes to help you with that, because our ultimate goal is for you to get that desirable sleep. Because who are we kidding? There's more than 1.4 billion people on this planet who are suffering from some sort of a sleep issue today. And together, if we can battle that, there is nothing better, achievement than that. So, yeah, you're more than welcome to visit us on our website. You can certainly email us if you do have any questions, and we'll be more than happy to answer that for you. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So again, the website, you can go there either way, artofselfhealing.ca, or
Yes.
you can go to the sleepcode.guru. And I'm just looking on your page, and I'm like, hey, that's the Shark Tank guy.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
Pradeep and Trupti next to the Shark Tank guy. Wow. And then you've got a beautiful endorsement from Jack Canfield, which is fantastic. And so this is beautiful that this book that you've written, because it's not just about this symptom, of sleep. And yes, of course, people can learn to fall asleep easily and quickly, get adequate sleep, release stress and anxiety, align your circadian rhythm, restore mental, physical, emotional, social, spiritual health by fixing your sleep cycle. It's so much more. It's really a holistic, 360 degrees of your whole life by doing some of the things that you, and really connecting to some of the things you both talk about in the book is not just going to help your sleep. It's going to transform your whole life, right?
That is correct, absolutely. Because what we talk in this book is a whole range of issues that people have, that they kind of break it down into, various issues. For example, people talk about stress and anxiety a lot. I mean, that obviously means that that person is having difficulty sleeping. And, it is about conquering emotions, because most of the people having ailments have issues with their emotions. They're struggling to control them, but it is way out of their league most of the time. And so this book basically points you to those areas which needs your attention, which you need to work on one step at a time, and eventually you're going to get it. Yeah, you just have to be a little bit patient with yourself. It's not going to happen tomorrow morning. However, by tomorrow morning, you would have taken your first step, which is kind of the good thing about it. And so it is very important to slowly and steadily take your baby steps. More importantly, we talk about sleep education and training. We didn't touch much about it, which I call it as the risk management. What we are talking here is about entrepreneurs and companies. They have their staff who are there, but they don't know if they are able to perform at their optimal level, just because they're working all these shifts and they are not able to gain proper sleep. They think that 8 hours of sleep at any time of the day is going to do the trick. It doesn't. And so it is very important, if you are a owner of a small business or whatever it is, then it is very important for you to take care of your staff members, particularly their well-being in terms of their sleep, because studies have shown that there are more than $50,000 to $70,000 per employee that a company is actually facing losses in a year. And so if you have 1,000 employees, that means you're talking some serious money here. And all that which can be fixed just by taking care of their own sleep. And so, in the Upanishadic word, Upanishads means it is one of the literature in ancient India. So we have essentially got like 1,280 different literature in ancient India, out of which a few are pretty important. So we have Vedas, then we call them, the next one is called the Shakas, which is the Vedic school. Then we have the Brahmanas, which are the commentaries on the Vedas. Then we have Upanishads, which are the philosophies in response to the Vedas. So that is what is called Upanishads. The word Upanishad means sitting nearby. So in the tradition, olden days, the guru, who is the teacher, used to sit nearby the student, and the student would actually ask the guru the questions that he had. So Upanishads were written in that format, whereby the guru sits beside the student and explains things to him as he questions him. So that is what Upanishads is all about. And then we have something called Vedanta, that is the later commentary on the Vedas. And then we have something called Itihasa, which is Itihasa meaning that there are epics such as Ramayana and Mahabharata. These are two books which were written, but these were not books. It was written as it happened. So that is what the Itihasas mean. And then we have something called Purana, which is a historic text. And these texts were written by the court-appointed historians. And finally, we have something called the Dharma Shastra, which is a collection and description of various laws of that time. And so I was actually mentioning about Upanishads in terms of sleep. So in the Upanishads, it is mentioned that there is something called as sleep units. So we don't call anything with hours. We don't equate anything with hours. We equate sleep units. And so in sleep units, there are specific timings in the day where you get the most benefit. So between 9 p.m. to 12 a.m., for every hour of sleep, you get 2 units of sleep. So between 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. So that is 3 hours, but you end up getting 6 units of sleep.
Oh.
And from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m., for every hour of sleep, you get 1 unit. And from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., for every every hour of sleep, you get half a unit. And after 6 a.m., actually there is no benefit of, you can sleep as much as you want, but you're not gaining anything out of it. It is just, you're just going to be even more tired as you wake up.
Wow. So that's in the Upanishads?
That is in the Mandukya Upanishad, yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I heard of something like that before, but I didn't know where it came from. So that is super interesting. Of course, I have a science mind, right? So I'm like, how does that happen? But, I think hormonally, they've actually kind of supported that. I know this is very ancient, but hormonally they've supported that as well, like to get ideal, hormone releases at the right times, going to bed early. I'm a late sleeper, so it takes some discipline on my part, but I'm getting better at going to bed at an earlier time. And I was looking on your website, Pradeep, before we go. I want to make sure people hear a little bit about your Mastering Deep Sleep 5-week live group program. So is that something you could tell us about?
Yeah, so we actually do have a mini program where, it is going to be over a period of 5 weeks. And then even though the class would be there for an hour, we
Mm-hmm.
do give the assignments for the entire week for somebody to practice and to actually apply that into
Mm.
their life. And even after 5 weeks, if they feel that they haven't had the adequate support for them to achieve the desired results, we will be more than happy to have a one-on-one mentoring sessions with them
Mm.
and train them until they are satisfied with the results that they are gaining out of it. And shortly, we will be coming up with another 12-week program. That's going to be a master program. And so the audiences can basically learn, they can practice, they can experience everything on a one-on-one basis. And so that is what we are willing to offer. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, because different people are at different stages of their healing and where they are at.
Correct.
And I've had so much benefit from mentoring and coaching programs that I've been involved in. Even though I myself am a mentor and coach and healer, etc. I can't know everything about everything,
Right.
And,
True.
and so it's wonderful that you offer this for people that need the accountability. Because some people will read the book and go, "Oh, that's nice," right? And then they put the book down and then they don't do anything. So for the people that are like more like that, then that accountability for the 5 week program would be really great. And those that, like you said, need a deeper, and sometimes I just want the one-on-one because I want to ask very, very, very specific questions, and then having that one-on-one with the mentor can be incredibly empowering and get to where I want to go faster. So I have absolutely no qualms about when it's a resonance, when it's a fit, that I'm just diving in and going, yes, I want that mentor, to help me one-on-one. So for people listening in, check it out, theartofselfhealing.ca. You can take a look at the different programs there, see if it resonates with you. Definitely, if you're having any sort of sleep trouble in the last few years, definitely get a copy of the book. And there's a connection there right on the website to get the book. You can get an ebook or you can get the physical book, theartofselfhealing.ca. And then if it resonates with you and you want more support and help, Pradeep and Trupti are there to help you, as they are the experts in this arena. So Pradeep, I think our time is just about up. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience before we say goodbye for today?
Yeah, sure. One other thing we didn't discuss much about is a sleep position and direction, which is very important. So, the sleep direction is so vital. If you are in the northern hemisphere, you need to sleep in the eastern direction. So, your head should be facing east. And even if you kind of sleep facing west, it is okay. But north should be avoided at any given time. So you cannot possibly sleep on the north.
Maybe that's why I sleep so much.
Okay.
Because my head is like northwest or something like that. It's not what, my ex-husband who built the house, I was like, can we just like do this differently? And he's like, no.
Yeah, northwest is actually okay. It's not.
Okay,
it's not. But if you are sleeping north, you need to be aware of it because, sleeping north in a day is not going to make any big difference. But then if you keep that as a normal practice, that's very dangerous because, the iron particles in our blood is drawn towards the magnetic meridian of the earth, which is facing north. And so if it is drawn towards the capillaries of our brain, you know how hairline like it is. So you don't want to actually damage your nerves, and that will cause you a lot of disease. So it is very important to avoid doing that. And so that is one thing which I just wanted to communicate with your audience today. And if they do that much, it can definitely ease their sleep much better.
Okay, good to know. I'm gonna get my compass out to see where my head is facing. And I think there's definitely something to that. I think in Chinese feng shui, it depends on your birthday and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know too much about that. But I remember thinking to myself, this is not the way my head should be facing. And I noticed that I wake up earlier. Almost every other place where I sleep, where I'm going on vacation or visiting family, like I naturally wake up with the light. Now my room's kind of dark. Again, it's my ex-husband and I argued way back when about where we should put everything, and he pretty much won the argument. For practicality's sake, I want a south-facing house because it's passive solar, and therefore that's the only place you can put the bedroom. But I definitely feel like I have to sleep more when I'm at home versus when I'm elsewhere. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm actually naturally getting up earlier. So, yeah, I think this is really good information. Now, there was something else you were going to share with us?
I think we have covered pretty much of the...
Oh, okay. So the sleep direction was got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just had to squeeze that in.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's great information. Thank you so much. So, Pradeep, it has been a great pleasure interviewing today. Thank you so much for your awesome book, Sleep Code, Renew Your Lifestyle, Recode Your Mind, and Restore Your Sleep. Everybody, you can get it at sleepcode.guru or CA. I wish you and Trupti many blessings. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen. It was a pleasure talking to you today, and I hope this has helped all of your listeners today, and hope they can take
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm sure. Thank you so much, and bless you. And thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you back on Light Warrior Radio next time. Bye for now, everyone.
Thank you, and namaste.
Namaste.